Hello, one and all, and welcome back to League of Europe Season 7. This is the 9th round of the Division 2 season, and it is a old-style season starter in League of Europe. It is the Australian Grand Prix at Albert Park. So, we have 19 drivers on the grid, raring to go racing for the 9th time as we reach the halfway point of this Division 2 season. To take you through the action tonight, it is myself, Daka, once again coming to you from the comments box, and alongside me, as has become customary, once again in Division 2, it is my good friend, QVR Verstappen. How you doing, mate?
Hello everyone, and welcome to Division 2 of League of Europe here at Australia. I'm doing well. Looking forward to this race. Australia, very technical track. So we'll have a look at these drivers fare around this beautiful track, I have to say, scenery-wise.
Yeah, certainly, of course. Around the Albert Park Lake there, you see the track loops around. That's going to make it for a very scenic race, as Verstappen has said. And yeah, let's see how it gets into it. Of course, this track, another quite polarising one, just like we saw last week in Bahrain. A lot of drivers love it, a lot of drivers hate it. It is very technical. Overtaking is tricky here, so we'll see how that is going to get on, although we have seen some classic Division 2 races at this track as well. Now, we're going to load into qualifying. You guys know how it works. 18 minutes right off the bat as we get into it. It can rain here at Melbourne, but no such issues there. Bright and sunny for the race. So, with qualifying, you have to say, being pretty crucial here for your performance. Let's get into it. A lot of pressure on for these drivers now.
Most definitely, and obviously it's quite easy track to validate as well. For turn 1, for example, or for the quick chicane of 11 and 12, where not only invalidating but just keeping it on the track is quite a difficult task while maintaining lap time. We'll have to see about that. I think QRT Timon is the first driver out on track, and I think that's kind of customary now.
Yeah, we always have one driver each season, don't we? That's typically first out on track. I do remember way back in the days of Season 3, we also Gary being first out on track time, and usually the R1 setting the scene first time out in qualifying, so he hits the track now. The rest of the grid will follow suit later on. So as I said, 19 drivers here taking on the 16 corner circuit. And yeah, I think one thing that is underappreciated about this track, how difficult it is to nail a hot lap there. You mentioned with invalidating, but just keeping it clean, keeping it tidy. A mistake-free lap is very hard to come by here.
Surely, there's a good couple of difficult traction zones that are difficult to nail. Turn 6 is one. The exit of the chicane through turn 9 and 10, a very difficult one, and the last corner as well. So it's not only difficult to keep on the track, but to even nail a lap, it's going to take some really interesting tactics, and we'll have to see if any of these drivers can do that.
Yeah, let's see if they can put it together. First over the lane, QRT Timon opening up the taps over the lane, getting a lap kicked off, then looking for that apex of turn 1. Pretty difficult to see, but he makes it nicely. Use as much of the track as you can early on the throttle and punch it out of turn number 2. Now up towards the first big braking zone at T3. Slow it down as much as you can. Third gear, we could see even higher gears throughout there. He does run a little bit in deep there. Now through turn 4, wait for it, then get on the throttle. Difficult traction zone. Turn 5 actually has to get out of it completely there, and I think he's going to back off that lap. That corner, of course, typically no such problem, just a slight left there for XL Gary in the Red Bull, who just comes through now. 26.8 for the first sector, and towards turn 6 then. Try and use as much of the track as you can. It's all about carrying momentum through that sequence of corners then. Now up towards turn number 9, very difficult corner there. Be careful of those curves on the inside and the outside then, in a tough traction zone, accelerating while turning, a driver's worst nightmare as you now approach the famed turn 11 and 12 complex then. A very deadly part of the track then, of course, as much speed as you can. Get that downforce working and get yourself moving once again. DRS open into the third sector now, looking for the Apex. Turn 13, break as late as you can again, all about carrying that momentum around this circuit. Turn 14 then, just an entry left, maybe a slight dab of the brakes, braking now. Turn 15, second gear, short shift to third. Try and maintain throttle traction all the way through there. Don't spin up the rears out of this last corner. And away you go to the line. XL Gary, a driver that does like this track crosses, 21-1. I think we will probably see quicker times. Not for Ariel Calvin though, who looks to have gone off out of turn 6.
Yeah, it looks like that traction that I mentioned earlier has caught him out completely. Swampy does a 22 flat on mediums, I have to say. The mediums aren't a very good quality tyre, so that is a very decent time, actually. AJ Wuhan goes 3/10 behind Gary.
Yeah, AJ Wuhan then in that Ferrari. Both Ferraris have went over the line. XL Gary 21.5 as the opening time. So we'll see these lap times coming in there. Zauraba, teammate to XL Gary, goes second, just over a tenth of a second down. Emily Creco, we've seen this man so often in qualifying in the last few seasons, shoots his way up towards provisional P1, but still very early days, so let's see how everyone is going to be able to approach this mark then. But yeah, Creco setting that early pace, but still, of course, a lot more to come from all the drivers. Nathan JB crosses the line, goes second, some 800ths down on Emily Creco. So 2 drivers into the 120s. We could see those times just trickle down maybe towards the mid-20s later on in the session, but certainly good start to get your bank lap in there. And Creco and Nathan JB, 2 guys we know to go very well in qualifying. They go up strongly early on. We'll see how the rest of the grid evolves as we get these first runs in.
Yeah, I think QRT Timon is not on the lap as he is on the 100% ERS. Matt Tibbles is on the lap, I think. He's coming down towards turn 11 and 12. Similar split to Gary, but does cut turn 11 and is invalidated. So that's unfortunate to see for him, but maybe he can get some pace up there and try again.
Yeah, certainly. Of course, we do have a debutant in Division 2. He's just invalidated then, and I'll leave it to Verstappen to pronounce his name before I have a crack at it. He is go on, mate, go on, just show me the way, please.
That'd be Ruud Gullit, obviously, for the football fans that'll know him.
I thought I recognised that name. I'm not a football fan, but
yeah.
I do vaguely recognise that name, so there we go.
Fair enough. I think we'll go by Ruud to keep it easy for you as well. I have to look for, I think everyone's first runs have just mostly concluded. I think Scream might still be in the lap. He's come through turn 13. Open up the throttle quite nicely, quite tidy as well. Looking here from the AlphaTauri towards the penultimate corner. Nice and deep on the brakes, first gear. No, does go into the pits. So he has not been happy with that lap or has other plans.
So looks like that's going to be near enough it for the first runs. Matt Tibos is actually lapping right now, so maybe we could see more from him. First lap didn't go quite so well for the Williams driver. In fact, this season in general just hasn't gone his way. And it's just an everlasting theme with Matt Tibos. Every race seems to be very promising for him, but ultimately something always gets in the way of him delivering his greatest potential. Only 14 points for the season, 18th in the standings at the moment as Matt Tibos. We'll see what he can do though, heading throughout the back end of the lap. Does have typically quite strong qualifying pace now to turn 15, and you're constantly modulating that throttle all the way until you get yourself out of this last corner into the line. And Matt Tibos very nice and clean heading through the exit up to the line, goes 5th, 121.3. We have seen though, out of those first runs, we've seen Calvin go off, and we've seen nearly half the grid fail to set times. And again, it's just hammering home what you and I stressed earlier on. Just getting a lap time in, and a clean one that's not invalid, very difficult here. That's a little bit more pressure on the guys that have, of course, that haven't got those clean laps in at first. Now they're going to have to try and put that work in and make sure they have something to build off before we get into the final stage of the session.
Yeah, this is a track where it's so important to build confidence, and if you're not on it right away, it can definitely get in your own head, and you just start leading to more and more mistakes continuing on. And yeah, I think drivers who can deal best with that, so someone like Creco and Nathan JB who's put in a good time early on, they'll have more confidence going throughout the session, and yeah, they'll be pushing more towards the track limits and obviously to get the best lap time possible as well. Looking around, is there someone on a lap? I think Mr. BT actually is on a lap. You come through the final sector now. 5th gear through turn 14. You can opt for 6 if you can hold it there. And to 2nd gear, a bit over the curb there on turn 15. Open up the throttle, bit of a slide there. DRS is open, and across the line will go the Aston Martin. Looks decent lap, P3 so far.
And may I add, with a very, very messy final sector. I was watching him from turn 11, and dare I say it, I didn't see him get a single corner right in that final sector. So there's a lot more time on in the tank for Mr. BT, who we have seen. Again, another driver that really impresses in qualifying and general. Someone to look out for throughout any hot lapping session. That is for sure. So let's see how everything is going to unfold further down the line. There is an Alfa Romeo coming up to the line. Timon very quickly the first 2 sectors, goes third. 21 flat for QRT Timon. So he gets himself right up there. Still a championship contender. Second in the title race behind Ariel Carmentalist, who we've seen ultra consistent all the way throughout the season, has been certainly the story for the Alpine driver, but he is invalid on his lap right now. Looking further down the order, Jacob comes up to the line in the Mercedes, and that's a good lap. Goes top of the timesheets, 1:20.8, just over Ted Clear. Timon has gone out at the exact same place as Calvin has. So again, maybe they're just catching that curb on the inside, and as soon as you get that car unsettled, of course, at Albert Park, technically a street circuit, and well, you have too much of a slide, and you can see how much this track could bite and punish you for any mistake you make.
Yeah, it's definitely done that for both Calvin and Timon. Timon obviously does have a lap on the board, so maybe a bit better for him so far, but really non-ideal end to the session. Funky Chicken goes across the line, 21.8, not the best time from him. One of the McLarens, if it's Nathan JB, going across the line, I think he's invalid. No, it's just trying again, so I'll have to see if he can improve in his lap time. Red Larkin, is he on a lap? Yes, 48.9 for the second sector split. Then towards turn 13, decent looking there. I don't think it'll be a very strong track in qualifying for him, but obviously he'll be up there in the race. Larkin always notoriously good in those races and getting consistently decent results. Throttle's opened up, and DRS as well across the line next to Larkin, 21.8, just ahead of Funky Chicken. That's not the best time.
Yeah, of course, XL Larkin second last week, nearly won the race, was just pipped in the end by Ariel Calvin, who we saw go off early in this session, so not the best start to proceedings for him at the moment. So we're still looking throughout things. That Scream has come off the rails on his lap. He will go again, though. Try and have another crack at it. Behind is Rote, or my best attempt to try to pronounce that name. He is extremely quick to the first 2 sectors and goes on to provisional pole. So immediately, you know, really showing his worth early on. We see AG Wuhan as well improving, goes fourth. So the times are starting to come down. And we see this quite often then. Debutants often, as we see, really shining as soon as we hit the track and qualifying for the first time.
Yeah, one man that doesn't usually do that is Commensalist, but he comes across the line. Looks to have a decent time. P6 so far.
Yeah, not a bad lap at all then for Ariel Commensalist. Puts himself somewhere in the mix. I imagine that time's going to get bumped down somewhat, but certainly something that he can work with going into the final runs, which I'd safe to say that not everyone throughout the field does. So that's going to be a good little stepping stone for the championship leader at the moment. So we'll see what he can do with that. Fairly quiet at the moment. A few drivers on laps. Ariel Coxey, who we haven't seen from coming up to the line now. Good lap, goes 7:21 flat. Just tucked in behind Carmentalist. That Scream to the line a little bit further back. Another guy we see impressing in qualifying sessions. He is 9th at the moment. Another 1:21 flat. So you can see these lap times now beginning to come in. Matt Tibos is on another lap, slightly up by about 0.2 of a second, heading through the second sector of the lap, dead right on the track limits, heading out of turn 14, trying to maximise everything he has up his sleeve. Now to the lane is Matt Tebos, then we'll see where this is going to put him. 13th at the moment, crosses the line, but he did lose quite a bit of time in the last sector, only 12th at the moment. Of course, there is the usual alt strat capabilities at this track that we usually see, so we can expect something from these guys. RRT Boompia, who we saw on a great lap early on, now looking to try and put something a little bit stronger on the board than what he has at the moment. Crosses the line 10th, 1:21.1. So you can see these times all stacking up around the low 121 runs, but as we can see there, Ruti, or again, butchering that, I know that, but he is on pole, but about a 10th of a second from XLJ Cole, and really two guys we wouldn't, well, I guess one unknown quantity, another guy we wouldn't expect to see really up there in qualifying, and then there's the slew of qualifying specialists behind Kriko Ejiwuhan, Nathan JB. So very fascinating stuff so far. This is also quite a specialised track. At the moment then, it's still fairly close, but going into this final part of the qualifying session, how would you say things are unfolding at the moment?
I think the top 5, top 6, they look very comfortable at the moment with their laps. I've not seen anyone else really up there. I'm expecting something from Gary as well, still to improve. His lap was right at the beginning of the session and definitely has a lot of time in that as well. So I think he'll be getting himself up there as well.
Yeah, you would expect that. We are, of course, in that lull just before we do hit the track one more time towards the end of the session. I think it's going to be XL Hardy that's going to kick things off for the final runs here. He's tracked by XL Gary, so we'll see how those guys to get on as they start to emerge from the pit lane for the final run. So Hardy, you can see very aggressively trying to get those tyres warmed up. I'm aware that there is a bit of an overheating problem in the last few corners, so I'm not sure if you want to be getting too feisty on that, but we'll see what is going to happen. But XL Hardy now gearing up now, setting up the run. I'll hand it over to you, Verstappen, to take us through a lap. XL Hardy over the line, trying to get things kicked off. 16th at the moment. He'll want more for this final run.
Yeah, across the line, XL Hardy goes, brake around 50 meters, and then just open it up towards turn 2 as well. Clip the apex obviously from turn 1. DRS is open, and a bit of traffic getting out of the way quite easily. Towards turn 3, bit deep goes Hardy. On the exit curve, you don't want to be there, but he does nicely get the traction down despite hitting that curb. Now towards the sector 1 split, you want to be on a 0.6, 0.7. 0.7 is alright for Hardy. Then looks nice through turn 6 actually there, and now down towards turn 8 and into turn 9. Again, a difficult chicane as the grass comes kind of inwards on the track, but he does invalidate there and has to back off to go again. I think we have to look in behind for Gary to be on the lap. Let's see how he fares on. Opens up the throttle down towards the very, very quick chicane of turn 11 and 12. Let's see, he is just under 10th up. Looks to be clipping that curve quite nicely for 11 and 12. Just about invalidates on the exits. Oh, it looked so nice up until that point, but he will have to back off, cool tires down, and go again.
Behind him, XL Gary also invalid on his lap, which can often happen when you really start to push the boundaries, push the limits, try and maximise everything. That's when the mistakes can really start creeping in. That's why you'll want that solid platform, like those guys that are already in the 120s already have to try and use heading throughout the remainder of their session. So we're looking now throughout the field. XL Larkin's on a lap, actually very solid through the first 2 sectors, runs wide off the apex through turn 12, just about holds on to it within track limits. So let's see how things are going to unfold then. Final stages of the session, most of the final laps have been kicked off, so let's see where everyone is going to stand, going to end up. So here comes Larkin then, the former champion, punching out of that final corner. Where's he going to emerge? He leaves quite a lot of room to the outside curb, crosses the line and goes 15th. Clearly not quite all dialed in for qualifying at this circuit. Behind him, it's a Ferrari, AJ Wuhan, who's just come over the line, bailed out on a lap, now going again behind Haas. Ben JS just comes over the line, get things kicked off, then that scream. So it's now all geared up for the final run. And Emily Creco is going to be first over the line very quick through the first 2 sections. Goes second, barely 200ths off provisional pole. Behind is Jaco. He's 400s up. Goes fastest, 1:20.595. Goes to the top at the moment, Ben, but still a lot more to come. XL Hardy crosses the line, only 17:20. 9th, sorry. I was looking at the wrong side of the graphic. He is 9th, 21 flat as the time. XL Gary improves 4th to 1:20.9, finds a few tenths off his banker lap then. So he's 4th at the moment then, and the time's going to start coming in. Root it again! Goes straight to the top, 1:20.457. Could we have a look at his division placements? I wonder. That is a very, very strong lap behind Coxey. Does in the end die to the pit lane. AJ Wuhan's going very well on his flying lap at the moment. Most of the drivers have wrapped up by this point, so we'll see what's going to happen. Mr. BT is coming up to the line, goes 5th, 1:20.8. We'll see what is next to come. AJ Wuhan is on a great lap. This could be second row of the grid at least. It is second row, and ties his time with his teammate. Gets in front, I imagine, on 10th of thousandths of a second. Ben JS over the line, goes 4th. That's a big late improvement for Ben JS to put it on the second row, and there was another late improvement. I couldn't quite catch what that was. We have an early debutant on pole position and a very frantic end to the session. I'll leave it to you, Verstappen, to run us through the results because, yeah, a lot actually evolving right at the close of that qualifying session.
Yeah, Ruti taking pole there, 1:20.4, very quick lap time, and it has to be said from Jaco as well, very quick from him on second place. And Creco and Ben JS might be surprising for the latter. Maybe he can finally get himself on the scoreboards. AJ Wuhan and Bonepie make for Ferrari third row, then Mr. BT and Gary for the fourth row. As the screen with a late improvement up to 9th, Nathan JB and 10th, and then Carmen's list on the Allstrat as you're used to by him, and then Coxey, Timon, Hardy, Matt Tibbles, Funky Chicken, Zadema, Larkin, and Calvin B riding up the grids then.
So that is going to be it for qualifying. Now we shift our focus to the race. Reports from the drivers are that it's going to be all dry then for everyone in front of our eyes. So we will see how these guys are going to tackle a race, how they know how it's going to unfold. So let's see how this is going to go. We look to load in to the Australian Grand Prix with a very interesting grid. I think, yeah, Ben JS being that huge surprise, putting it on the second row. We'll see if he'll hang on to that. Of course, as is customary in Division 2, the season hasn't gone his way at all. So he will be hoping amongst hopes that he will be able to at last get himself onto the scoreboard, as you said. So we begin to get ourselves counted down. I imagine strategy probably won't be too interesting at the circuit. I think it's just a standard soft to medium around this track. So these guys probably know the parameters. But one thing is to note that unlike strategy-wise, this is probably quite similar to Bahrain in a way, but we know that comparatively, working your way through the field, a lot tougher at this circuit.
Yeah, it's not a lot of good overtaking opportunities. Let's just confirm to see. And yeah, everyone outside the top 10 is on the mediums. That is no surprise whatsoever. But yeah, as you said, overtaking is not the easiest thing around here. It's very difficult to get a move done towards turn 1. There's not really an overtaking opportunity. Turn 3 is your big one, but the inside is very easy to defend, so if you can maintain that, that is usually going to end up in your favor. The other one I'd mention is turn 13 of the third DRS straight, as Hardy and Matt Tibbles get disqualified from the formation lap. But yeah, if you can catch the guy ahead on a bad exit out of the chicane, you can get yourself up for a move down towards turn 13, so expect the moves to be around there mostly.
Yeah, certainly. Let's see how that is going to go. Of course, opportunistic moves can also change fortunes of drivers, so we'll see how that is going to unfold. Yeah, going to be very interesting, of course. We've seen it's kind of similar to what we had in Bahrain with most of the title contenders starting quite far down the field at this track. Of course, Carmen's and Timon, the two frontrunners in that title race. Timon, I imagine, will have expected a lot more. I think Carmentalist will be very happy to be starting from P11 with the front of that Allstrat. But of course, Allstrat, well, it is definitely very fast here. You've got to get those overtakes done, and we know that is definitely not a given. Not impossible around this track by any means, but also not a given, so we'll see how that's going to go. Ruti comes towards the front of the grid. XL Jacob surprisingly on the front row, Emily Creco and Ben JS. That are your first 2 rows. Not the longest run into T1. So we'll see how that is going to unfold. I guess I'll come to you, Verstappen, before we get going. How do you think these 29 laps are going to shape up ahead of us?
I think we'll have a very exciting race ahead. I'll give myself some predictions. I think the front row will maintain themselves in first and second, and I'm going to say Commentalist in third on the Ultra.
Well, we know how he can work his way through a field. Let's see how that's going to go as we now get ready. The grid settles. 29 laps of Albert Park racing ahead of us as we build up to the 9th round of the D2 season. We have 5 red lights. And we're off the grid in Australia. From the line, Ruti gets away fairly well there. Jacob couldn't quite get to him as they're all fanned across the track. Nearly 3 went for P3 behind. Benji getting swallowed up. AJ Wuhan trying to storm through. He's forcing his way almost through on Creco, and they're wheel to wheel at a turn 2. Benji S tucked in behind. They're all jostling as they head up towards the hairpin for the first time at turn 3. All filtering through quite nicely. No too much dramas. Then Creco and AJ Wuhan are still going at it to turn 5 then. Almost side by side through the apex. AJ Wuhan had to get out of that. In the end, he relinquishes the place, goes to P4. All the top 10 still remaining the top 10 at the moment. Carmental still the leading old strat runner. Not too many position changes all the way throughout the field. Just a few little swaps here and there. Further down the order, you can see everyone waving around. We saw Matt Tibos under threat for a charging Calvin after a disappointing qualifying session, but a fairly clean start there, which is surprising for Australia. Everyone just about managing to keep it all intact.
Yeah, and immediately Ruti and Jacob look to be pulling away as a 6 gap between themselves, but 9 tenths to Creco. So Creco really has to step up his game to stay with these 2.
Yeah, of course, still another lap after this before that DRS is going to become active, so you certainly do not want to be relinquishing time too much. DRS isn't super powerful at this track, but you do have those 3 zones that all add up throughout the track. Ruti setting a good pace early on. Jacob tracking him half a second down at the moment then, but Creco, as you mentioned, is the one that hasn't quite gone with the pace. He has got a lot of battery, but so do the front 2. They're all pretty similar, around 70%. You're going to have to use it behind. Boobje is through on that screen. That screen must have made a mistake. The AlphaTauri on the defensive from the McLaren of Nathan JBN behind then, so they all slot their way through. Gary still in P10 at the back of the soft train. The mediums, you'd imagine, will fall off in the first few laps, but of course come back to him, as is fairly customary with league racing on this game. Ruti holding firm in front, Jacob tracking him. Creco then is going to have to work quite hard. He's holding on to that DRS, but he cannot afford an error at this stage, as Hardy picks up an early penalty. Penalties as well could be a theme of this race if these drivers aren't watching out.
Well, Calvin gets a move done on Matt Tibos, as I see Timon just off out of turn 10. I think he skipped it out of the wall, but he loses a lot of position. He's all the way down into last place now, so that is definitely not ideal for him. It also caused Sediment to now have to push to keep up with Commentalist and Coxie. And some gaps are spreading out a little bit throughout the field. AJ Wuhan is also one to struggle as Simon gets past Funky Chica now. Yeah, AJ Wuhan 1.1 seconds to Creco and has to step as a game.
Yeah, he's just out of that range at the moment. DRS, the first time you'll see DRS, because this is a double detection point. It's going between turns 12 and 13. That's the first time you'll see that. Creco and AJ Wuhan both straddling on the edge of that range, as Ruti's pace at the front is shaking up this soft train. And again, I'm thinking we may well have a new D1 driver after this race, because right now he is on it at the moment, pulling out that gap. Jaco tracking still, keeping within DRS range, and Creco has just slipped out of it. He's going to have to work with that battery. Of course, all these guys about midway on battery. Benji S has actually done a better job of looking after it. The rest of the guys holding on decently. You mentioned that fracture that was threatening to open up in the medium train. I think Carmentalist has made a bit of an error there, so Coxey closes up to him, and Carmentalist just threatening to dip out of that DRS range. If he gets dropped early, then that is going to be what those guys in front need. But if Carmentalist can haul himself back in, If you can hold on to that DRS, it could certainly stand him a good stead for the back half of the race. But right now, I think the pace we're seeing from the leaders is shaking things up. But Kriko at the moment then, Jaco has managed to stick with Ruti's leading paces. Funky checking us out, heading out at turn 12. We'll see if that's going to bring out any safety cars. VSC comes out then. That's going to be a reset for the race. But is anyone going to look to try and do a bold strategy, Verstappen?
I would almost expect so, but yeah, Nathan JB's in.
Okay.
And Gary's following him. So these two are going to either go hard, but I expect mediums, and they're just going to risk sort of a puncture territory. Let's have a look. I think we're seeing mediums from Gary, and also from Nathan JB. So both of them going in. Simon as well going in. That's an interesting one. Is he onto hards? Yes, he is. So he's trying to gain positions that way.
It might not be a bad strategy for Timon. We'll see. He didn't have much to lose. He was at the back of that train. Green flag racing is back underway, and we know that gaps can appear this way. Carmentalist has certainly lost out. Nathan JB re-emerges, and Gary is up alongside him now, outside of turn 3. This is more important, even though it's for P16. So right outside goes Gary, snatches the place away. Nathan JB seemingly has no grip. He's not been able to get those tires switched on, and the McLaren is all over the road. He manages to stick to the rear wing of Gary, but he will have not been looking for that blow. We saw as well, further up the order, a few penalties being backed up. BenGS and Mr. BT further up the field, they have got themselves some penalties. Those mediums fresh out the pit lane haven't gone well. I think Timon will be struggling quite a bit with that. But as we see, this tends to be a thing with VSCs. A few gaps have opened up, and namely that gap between the soft and the medium runners has grown by a few tenths of a second thanks to that virtual safety car. Yeah,
it's almost 2 seconds. As I think IJ Wuhan is out.
Oh!
There's something happening, and he has lost it. It's a safety car out.
Wow, full safety car deployed then. Now you'll see it emerge from the pit lane, and yeah, I think we'll see. So Gary and Nathan JB's strategy, I think you'd imagine, is going to be mimicked by all the soft runners, and in pretty much identical fashion to last week's race, the medium runners are forced into that very awkward spot where really there's no obvious strategy that's going to give them an edge here.
Yeah, it's almost identical, you have to say, and yeah, indeed. I don't think Gary and Nathan JB will be very happy with this one, I have to be honest. Yeah, I think they'll be kicking themselves they pitted now. But yeah, there's still time. A couple double stacks will have probably as well as BenJS. Obviously, is behind his teammates on the softs. There's Cream as well, so maybe they can gain off that, but beyond that, I don't think there's much to gain.
Yes, certainly. At this stage. So these top 7, you'd imagine, are all going to be into the pit lane. There is really no need for them to try and stay out. They will, you'd imagine, lose a bit of grip near the end, but the medium should still be fine. No real puncture issues, you'd imagine, for these guys. They will just dive to the pit lane a couple of laps, so the safety car is going to help them as well. And then, well, what do the medium guys do? Here we go now. Busy pit lane coming up then. Into the pits for Ruti, Jaco, Kriko, BenGS force into that double stack there with Mr. BT, Boopy, Das, Scream also double stacking. Those guys are all in. Carmentalist stays out. And in fact, looking at this, I'm not sure if there's any contact in the pit lane. Yeah, I see with a couple of cars now almost side by side. So a busy pit lane then, and most of the medium starters staying out. So now we're going to see these guys put a whole set of mediums on the emerge. There's 6 guys that have stayed out there. A couple of guys really getting held up in that pit lane. It's still Ruti from Jaco, Kriko, and somehow BenGS, despite stacking, holds on to his net position.
Yeah, I saw Bump here. He went into the back of, I think it was BenGS or Mr. BT, one of the two. I think he tried to make an overtake on someone in the pits, which is actually allowed, but yeah, he slanted to the back of him and had to change his front wing. So not the smartest idea. Larkin has followed basically his teammate onto Hearts. He's the only one that's done that. So yeah, we got 6 runners on the mediums, old mediums I have to say, still out, and a whole bunch of fresh medium runners behind that.
So again, all these guys hoping that there's going to be a more timely safety car to work to their advantage. We've seen Larkin in time in the 2 Alfa Romeos. Larkin came in on the safety car just then, And, well, because they're already with the back, Larkin can't do the so-called, you can see safety cars in this lap, so Larkin can't, and Timon can't do that sort of tactical pit stop where you go for hards and then for mediums when you're in that position after starting on the mediums. So they've been put at a disadvantage here, and they're going to struggle, I imagine, for grip, especially Larkin on fresh hards that haven't had a chance to warm up. So we get back to racing on this lap, and Car Mentalist, customary, leads the way. Coxey is stuck with him so far throughout this race. A few penalties throughout the field. Hardy, Benji S, Mr. BT. Car Mentalist controls it through a very technical third sector where there's a few chances to get a good jump. So he's going to look and try and bide his time and make sure he goes away at the right time. Coxey going with these two former teammates, and then Donoa in that third position. Three drivers with quite a lot of racecraft leading the way. So we'll see what the others can do then. Rote, of course, will be leading that charge further down as Jaco has dropping down the field then as we do get back to green flag racing. Jaco's made a mistake as soon as he applies the throttle, and that's going to open things up near the front. As such then, no dramas for most of the others then, but Jaco, big mistake. Gary as well has lost a lot of time. He may got held up behind Jaco, recovering the Mercedes. It's down the field as Calvin's gone off. Calvin McLaren spinning it, heading out of turn number 2, so the McLaren is off the road for the second time tonight. Hardy and Matt Tibbles scrapping away then. Ruti around the outside. This is very important. Ruti, the net race leader, going bold on the inside of turn 5 in a big move to get himself through to P5, and good opportunistic driving to move his way up. So he now runs 5th. Matt Tibbles down to 6th. Emily Krieger, who was promoted from Jaco's mistake, now he's got the task of trying to stick with the net race leader. So Matt Tibbles slipping back, a few swaps of positions. We see Timon getting past his teammate. The hard runner's already struggling, but Jaco, such a promising race, and one mistake on a restart and he's right down the field.
Yeah, it looked like he just dropped it, maybe not had his tyres warmed up enough. Mr. BT looking close on the back of NGS, and meanwhile Ruti is looking close on the back of Hardy already. He's looking very quick. Almost had a look there, but Hardy had a moment which prevented from him make him go for a move. So he has to tuck him for a little bit behind, but I don't think he'll be stuck here for much longer.
Yeah, certainly. Hardy under a lot of pressure then. Ruti really applying that pressure, and of course he needs to. He wants to try and create that gap to the likes of Kriko in behind, or pose the biggest threat to him in this race for the moment then. So Hardy holding on 4th. Matt Tibbles now a penalty. Those penalties are going to, I imagine, start counting up. Ruti is attacking Hardy. Hardy covering the inside lane, moves late, and Ruti has to go through the grass. Tries to save it. Hardy holds on to the place, but that was quite a late move from Hardy then. Back over towards the racing line, and dare I say it, the Haas to close up to him really was not expecting the Alpine to move over then, and Hardy, a bit naughty there. He does hold on to the place, but you'd imagine Ruti, the net race leader, is not going to be too happy with that one.
I'd imagine not, as Mr. BT, I think, has made a mistake. So he got damage, I don't know for sure. He must have lost that turn 6. I don't think he has damage. He has lost a significant amount of positions. He's down to P14.
Yeah, so Mr. BT then, a little error. Now he is at the back of this medium train. Timon's done a good job of working his way back towards it. Calvin's been through the pit lane, of course, having made that mistake further down the order. Ruti having another go at Hardy. This time he's on the inside line. Surely the move is going to be complete. Yes, it is. Great move from the Haas, and he moves through to P4. The Alpine again down to P5. Hardy still maintaining that place, but now Car Mentalist, Coxey's Ottawa, they'll be really a watchful eye on CPI Ruti behind him. So he now runs in P4 at the moment. DRS back on the cards then, as Jaco's made another error out the last corner. Has managed to keep it in the race and doesn't look to have any major damage, but Jaco, man, such a promising start, and you could see it all begin to slip away for the Mercedes man. He drops down to 16th on the road, way detached from the field. Again, you can have a great start to the race, but in a field like Division 2, those mistakes are going to be punished 100% of the time. And Jaco, who's had a really good start to life, really, in Division 2, again, after being promoted to Division 3, right now this race has gone from extremely promising to an absolute nightmare for the Mercedes man.
Yeah, it's not looking like a good race. What looked so promising in qualifying in the first opening laps is completely faded away the last couple laps, unfortunately. And you'll have to hope for a safety car, some madness to happen to get a good result. Matt Tibbles is looking on the back of Hardy now. He has the DRS, Hardy does not. He's going for the move towards the outside of turn 13. Does he make it stick? Hardy breaks very deep in and seems to stay ahead. Good defending by Hardy there.
Hardy not letting go of these places easily, and of course he's got every right to defend it, but he has no DRS on the cars in front of him. He runs very deep, heading through that penultimate corner. Rote's also on the back of Zernema. We'll see how that's going to unfold. I think first off though, Hardy is going to get breezed past by Matt Tibos here, cruises through to P5. Krika will try and follow, can't quite manage it for the moment then, so Matt Tibos swapping, and that's not going to help Kriko really, and the gap to him to Rote just continues to expand. He won't get past Zernema on this occasion, but I think that he can still be fairly safe with maintaining that time and has picked up a penalty, and still another blow to what has been a very frustrating evening for the title contender so far. Carmentalist, his title rival, leads the way, but of course he has been forced into staying out just like he was last week, trying to hold on and hope that a well-timed safety car is going to come his way. He won't want it yet. He'll want to wait a little bit longer until he can put on softs. Coxey and Zernema hoping for the exact same thing. They are still tracked by CPI Rotiola, who still runs fairly contently behind Zernema. I think he'll be happy with that, with Kriko, who's really his closest rival in terms of net possession, way down 7th. Hardy's made another error though, and gets a penalty, cutting completely across at turn 12 there, trying to save his car because he was very deep heading through turn 11. The rest of them are all stacking up behind him, so a lot of these guys are going to get frustrated, unable to make through. But Rote now, he doesn't really need this. He's sat behind Zernema. He gets on the grass at a turn 15, saves it just about. He's still pushing the limit despite a solid lead. He's just hoping, and again, he's hoping there's no safety car, because that's going to affect the guys in front. So those top three are holding out for it. Rote just chilling there, but really, with Kriko showing no sign of being able to make the move stick at the moment, he is up behind Hardy, but Ruthie has a good gap and he can just save his battery and really doesn't need to attack Zernema just yet.
Yeah, you can sit it quite nicely, and I think all these medium runners in behind will see that and they will get quite impatient, especially when you have someone like Hardy who tends to defend quite a lot, no matter who it is behind him. They will get quite frustrated, I reckon, and Kriko has to find a way by quite quickly.
Yeah, certainly. He's got to try and search for a way through. Of course, Hardy without that DRS will be an assistance to Kriko, but right now he's not really sitting on his rear wing. He's got pretty much full battery. He's got all the capabilities he needs. He just hasn't sent a move just yet on the Alpine in front. Rote is attacking Zernema, and I think Zernema just peels out the way. Through goes the Haas. The Rote to P3 on the road. And he is flying out there on the circuit then, continuing to pull quite clear and using every millimetre of the road, still pushing the limits and extending that lead behind him. Then he looks unstoppable at this stage. Behind him, still Kriko, frustrated behind Hardy. You'd imagine he's got to try and get that move done just about now. Hardy gets a good run out of turn 16, and again Kriko just refuses to use his battery. He's got everything he needs. He's closing his DRS midway down the straight. Really, I don't know why he isn't sending this. He's got everything he needs. Now he opens up the taps as that Scream's gone off behind in the Haas. Rote again on Coxey. Nathan JB, everything's going on as well. Rote gets rowdy outside of Coxey to P2 on the road. A few cars going off then. Nathan JB slips further down the order then. That Scream has went further down. He's 5 seconds off the back. Kriko lasso through on Hardy in a very unorthodox place. He gets through heading into turn 6. Ben JS immediately trying to follow through outside of turn 8 and turn 9. Gets half a car length in front. Hardy tries to stick it down the inside but can't. And Ben JS goes off the track, but he sails around the outside of the stricken Alpine, and he is P7 now on the road and still holding out for that podium. But Gary in behind, with no penalty and a stronger possession, but with tyres on the way out at that stage, and he has got slightly older tyres. Boompier picks up a penalty, still hounding Gary at this stage. Nathan JB is on the rear wing of CPI and Mr. BT. At this stage, there's a huge slide further up the order. There's BenGS. BenGS is all over the place, and he makes the error. Heading out of turn 14, and Gary takes advantage. Hardy slips through as well. Still holding on then and fighting for every place. BenGS, just after he got through a critical error, and Gary now using that deployment, looking to try and stay in front. So very scrappy down there, and that does help Kriko just try and extend that gap a little bit. So right now, barring any safety cars, you have to say Kriko as well with no penalties. Gary will try and get in the way of that, but Hardy holding these guys back. The top two beginning to establish themselves now from the rest of the field.
Yeah, these two are completely gone, and Ruti's probably going to overtake Commentalis quite soon as well. Kriko has to catch up to these other medium runners, the quicker ones so far, who obviously have got a gap from Hardy and Matt Tibbles earlier on as well, just not being able to catch back up. And let's have a look, because I think it's just this train still behind Hardy, and no one's been able to find a way through. So far, a couple of mistakes creeping in here and there from the Scream and Nathan JB we saw, and yeah, a lot of penalties as well, which will be a deciding factor.
Yeah, certainly. We'll see. We're not even halfway through this race, so that can certainly be exaggerated throughout the remainder of the Grand Prix, can certainly have an effect on where things will stand by the end of the 29 laps. So, Hardy still holding back his train. Kriko has just been allowed to extend that gap, and Ruti setting all over the rear wing of Carmentalis then. I thought I saw someone going to the pit lane. I don't think it is actually the case. Ruti right on Carmentalis' rear wing, and Carmentalis being the championship leader probably isn't going to be too willing to fight this one. He pulls right over to the outside. The intentions are clear. Ruti early goes through. Jaco has gone out, heading out of just out of turn 12 then. There hasn't been an official decision that Jaco, another blow to his race. Now his race seems to be run. It doesn't look like anything's going to come out because it hasn't cleared itself. Then further down the order, there's Mr. BT, and BenGS is checked up. I'm not sure what's happened here, but Mr. BT's gone off the road into the back of BenGS. The Aston Martin recovers. There's more yellows then as Larkin has gone round. Larkin recovering out of turn 5. I didn't get quite a full view of that, but right now, as BenGS gets swamped, then Boompy on his inside gets through the turn 9. Forceful move. BenGS is off the road. That was a real chaos then, heading to turn 4 and turn 5. How exactly did that transpire, Verstappen?
I think earlier on, Gary tried to make a move on Hardy, or Hardy made a mistake, and they got bunched up all together, and everyone tried to get around it, and it just all checked up down towards turn 5, as we have multiple cars side by side, which is just not the way to go around that corner. And I think Mr. BT has damage. I don't know what happened to Larkin. I think he just dropped it on his own. But yeah, quite a lot of chaos there.
Yeah, certainly quite a lot of chaos, and that again continues to free up that top two. Gary is going to fly past Hardy here. No real contest, and he does slip through to 7th. Breaks very early. Hardy is still trying to fight from a near hopeless position. He's really gutsy here as Hardy. He gets swamped now. Nathan JB is up on his outside. McLaren taking on the Alpine then. Breaks extraordinarily late. Gets it all wrong. And Nathan JB is going to lose back out to Hardy. So Nathan JB overcooks the manoeuvre. I think he was scared of Hardy, who's sent it on everyone tonight. And Nathan JB, another hitch to his race. Gary now being allowed to move up the road. So Nathan JB picking up a penalty now, and that's another pen to go on top of another one that he picked up earlier. Then he's going to go inside of turn 9 though. Bold move from Nathan. Doesn't get much space from Hardy. Forces him off the road, and Hardy covers it. Boompie will cruise around the outside to P9. Hardy not getting out the way. Nathan JB was having none of it, making contact, but he has 8 seconds of penalties to his name. Gary now sitting fairly comfortably in an EP3. His tyres may well struggle near the end, but he is certainly in a strong position at the moment then. So things continue to spread out. Ruti now making a mistake actually through turn 15, and Commentalis, you'd imagine, fairly frustrated in behind the Haas. He is actually going to get through on the straight, interestingly enough. And yeah, Kriko is some way behind though. Mr. BT somehow managed to get a 10-second penalty for corner cutting, which I thought you could only get if you did it deliberately. But the Aston Martin picking up a very harsh penalty. These guys at the front still running well, and you mentioned that someone's got damage?
Yeah, I think Mr. BT has picked up damage. May have got a corner due to that. I'm not too sure. But he looks, he does have damage.
plate,
so that's unfortunate to see. And his race comes from bad to worse. And at this rate, as it's going, I think Calvin may still have a shot at points, to be honest here. We'll have to see about that later. Yeah, interesting development at the front is Ruti's not really pulling away from Carmentelis and actually been re-overtaken, as you said. So, not sure if he's got more pace in the tank as Mr. BT does retire now. Yeah, unfortunate to see that. Yeah, Ruti not looking to be able to pull away.
Yeah, not at the moment then, but again, he has got a good advantage. Coxey has not been able to stay with it, so Carmentelis' pace on mediums looks quite strong. Coxey holding back Zerwa, holding back Matt Tebos. Kriko a few seconds further back. Again, it's only a 5-lap difference in the tyres, and you can actually see that, you know, these guys aren't exactly dropping away. Hardy has dropped like a stone through the field, but the rest of these guys have held on fairly well, it must be said. Matt Tebos goes through, Zerwa has went into the pit lane early, so he's not going to bank on a safety car for any longer as we have a migrating host, and Jaco has gone out of the session now. I'm not sure if that's a disconnection. I'm hoping that, well, let's see if he can get back in, because hopefully the lobby is going to hold up through the rest of this. Hardy's gone in, Zerwa has gone in, so we'll see where these guys emerge. They will come out some way down the field. Of course, the safety car will not have done him any favours. Nathan JB is attacking Gary. He doesn't get much space. Comes back in a turn 4, and he's not going to give much space in return, so a feisty battle between these two. Nathan JB gets ready outside, and Gary had to get out of that. Otherwise, that could have ended in tears there. So, in the end, Nathan JB reclaiming the place, but he does have plenty of penalties. Gary knows he's still on for a podium, really, at this stage. Carmenta still leads Rudy Hulick. You'd imagine now these guys may try and defect to the pit lane. Zerwa and Hardy have essentially run a strategy that's going to play it safe. But are these guys that are still out there, are any of them going to bank on a safety car? With the attrition factor of Australia, wouldn't rule it out at this stage.
It's interesting because realistically, even if there's no safety car, these also have runners, especially like Carmentelis and Coxey, they're in a very good position. A lot of guys on in the soft medium strategy have been caught up in incidents or in penalties. They have a lot of them, and Coxey goes in actually his lap, so he is not banking on that. But even without that, I think there's a very good chance for maybe Carmentelis to get up into the top 5 position without it.
Yeah, certainly. So we'll see, especially if these guys can avoid penalties, and for the most part they've done a very good job of avoiding picking up those pens. So that could work to their advantage. Coxey is a good indication, and he's going to be just behind Zerwa actually with a very strong undercut, who was running right behind Coxey and has jumped several seconds up the road, so you can see that undercut in action, and that's why these guys really... they have to make that decision very soon, and they don't want to, if they want to play it safe, they don't want to stay out for too much longer and go into a pit lane late, because, I mean, you can see how strong that undercut is. Zerwa has gained 3 full seconds on Ariel Coxey, and that would put him possibly in front of Carmentelis, in fact, probably in front of Carmentelis at this stage. Carmentelis then, you'd imagine, may have to respond. He doesn't want to be caught behind other Altstrat runners at this stage on a potential late charge through the field late on, because you can see the advantage of those fresh soft tyres compared to the old mediums that Carmentelis is currently on. He runs P1 at the moment, was leading Altstrat runner. Does he go to the pit lane? Yes, he does. So in comes the Alpine. We'll see where he emerges, but with how strong and potent that undercut has been from Zerwa, I get the feeling he may get the jump on the Alpine, man.
I think there's a definite chance. I think we'll be very close at the pits. I think the gap between Carmentelis and Coxey was about 2.5 seconds. And obviously with the pit exit, that may favour Carmentelis slightly here. Let's see where he comes out. Sideman just coming across the final corner. And I think he's going to jump him. You see Carmentelis just about there. Sideman sits the fast lap of the race. Actually, he's going to be very close, as I said. They go side by side, almost contact. Carmentelis has to avoid, and Zerwa goes up in front into P8 at the moment. And Carmentelis has to tuck in behind for now. Looks for a move, but doesn't get it work done into turn 3.
So Zerwa getting the jump on Carmentelis. Carmentelis has a tyre advantage, but that's going to be an offset for him. They're up behind that Scream. That Scream, no penalties, so they'll have to get that one done on track and then make up quite a lot of time. Matt Tibos, 6 seconds of penalties. He will have to come into the pits. Nathan JB, 8 seconds. And Carmentelis is attacking Zerwa earlier outside of turn 9. This is bold. Zerwa, though, is going to fend him off then, holding an inside line. And Carmentelis losing a bit of momentum then. Both these guys are decent on battery, but not amazing. They'll try and use their reserves to make that charge up the field. Carmentelis really wanted that early, gets a penalty for his troubles then. That's going to hold him back farther down the line, and Zaurba, his possession looks stronger and stronger by the second. Carmentelis cannot get through just yet as they continue to reel in that scream. The AlphaTauri just in front of him. Frustration for Carmentelis then. Bumpier is only 3 seconds then. Nathan JB is the one guy they may have a chance of getting to, of course with its penalties, but Gary, you'd imagine, will be happy to see these guys just struggling a little bit more. Zaurba with DRS off that scream now, and he's going to look to get this done as soon as possible. Coxey fastest lap as these guys begin to get held up, so Coxey is going to try and reel in the other Alt-Strap runners. Let's see how this is going to unfold. Zaurba now attacking that scream middle of the road, down the inside goes XL Zaurba. Can he get it stopped and turned in? That scream's not going to get him up just yet. Round the outside goes Zaurba into position 7 then. Great stuff from XL Zaurba, and this race looks more and more encouraging. Carmentelis, opportunistic inside of turn 6, gets through it. That scream gets out of it then. He was not having any of that at a very narrow part of the track, and Carmentelis is through to position 8. So those guys both get around the AlphaTauri of that scream on much older tyres. Never going to see how much that tyre advantage is going to play into it. Just under 10 seconds for Zaurba to make up. A lot, you'd imagine, is going to be on the cards. But with Bumpier and Nathan JB's penalties, this race looks more and more encouraging for the Red Bull man. And yet another drive through the field with no penalties. Typical Zaurba race seems to be on the way here.
Yeah, this is completely typical, as Calvin is now retired in the pits as well, as Matt Tibbles is the last runner to go into the pits. He'll be strapping on a set of soft tyres, I'd imagine. And Coxey is going to go for a move on the screen very soon. Don't know if Carmentelis is intending for a move if he wants to get past, but he seems not too happy at the moment. He's been undercut by Zaurba and been held up slightly as Matt Tibbles comes out there as well. Coxey is getting past on the scream into turn 1. Fairly easy move, goes a bit deep. I think he's holding onto that. Let's see if Carmentelis goes for a move. He drains his ERS, so he's definitely wanting to go for it. Outside of turn 3, Zaurba going to be able to hold on. He keeps his nose in there, but Carmentelis looks to have it completed. Very good move there from Carmentelis. Up into P6.
Sails round the outside. I think he may have picked up another warning though. He certainly doesn't want to get 6 seconds to his name. 9 seconds is the gap to Bumpier. He'll try and break Zaurba. It's crucial that he stays with Carmentelis to ensure that that 3 second gap is not open. And with 2 lap holder tyres, that is certainly a possibility. So Zaurba is going to have to work hard and make sure he's keeping that gap in check, with now Carmentelis really pushing, because he knows he needs to get that gap out. Timon gets a penalty. Actually running in P10 despite the awful race he's had is Bumpier. Oh, it's all kicked off further down. Bumpier is rounding outside of Gary, and they're wheel to wheel towards turn 14. Gary will hold on the inside, but Bumpier showing his attention. He gets underneath on the exit, trying to get outside of the turn 15. Gary sends it back, and they're wheel to wheel. Nothing between them. Round the last corner, side by side. This is unbelievable. They open the DRS. Bumpier, brilliant move, gets through on XL Gary. He went outside of turn 13, got a switchback out of such a high-speed corner. Gary was caught off guard completely. Carmentelis fastest lap. Bumpier, though, that was outstanding. So aggressive, but so measured. And in the end, XL Gary, he fought it with all he could, but in the end, he just couldn't hold the Ferrari man back.
Yeah, brilliant action between the two of them, and great respect shown by the both of them as well. Really not going to matter too much in the grand scheme of things, as Gary does not have penalties and Bumpier does have that. Carmentelis in the meantime is closing up rapidly here. He's 6 or 7 seconds behind Bumpier as Larkin is going round out of turn 2. May have just picked up a spin. Those hearts do not look enjoyable whatsoever.
Certainly not then, and this has been a race to forget for the former champion XL Larkin, now 14th on the track. There's certainly been a bit of a race of attrition, really, this P3 fight, and Zaurba Carmentelis is really all the close fighting we've got on track right now. It has spread out tremendously at a very difficult circuit, and yeah, we've seen 5 drivers out of the race and plenty of others caught up in incidents. Gary, by the way, it was a very intense wheel-to-wheel battle, and I'm not sure if he's got damage or if he's just struggling, but he's been detached, actually, from this group of Nathan JB and Bumpier. And I think Bumpier in particular is just going to look at that and see an opportunity maybe to take advantage. He runs 4th at the moment then, bottled up behind his Timon has gone out, and is that a crash? He has gone out of the last corner. It's a VSC that comes out, not a full safety car.
Yes, there is.
Our full safety car now deployed after that, and wow! That changes everything. That is unreal. So, a VSC, then a full safety car, and I mentioned just there how spread out this field is. All of a sudden, field spread is not going to become a thing anymore. Everyone converges, and wow, this really spices up this Grand Prix.
That's quite unbelievable, I have to say, and everyone with a penalty. Yeah, they'll be kicking themselves now, and especially Nathan JB, if that's 5 seconds he has to serve it, if he wants to pit, that's going to be difficult for him. He has to serve that, I think. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting, and I imagine we're going to see at least all the medium runners currently, they're going to be in. That's no doubt. The question is, are Commentless and Zuidema and all those lots going to be in? Because they won't really lose a lot if all of them go in, but if only one of them goes in, you'll really lose like 4 or 5 positions. There's really a gamble there. Ruti and Kariko undoubtedly, and Nathan JB with his penalty as well, so he's going to have surface. He'll drop back. Let's see what Commentalist does. I think he's staying out.
Yeah.
Zuidema's in. Coxie stays out. The Scream's definitely going to go in. He's on mediums. And then we'll look to Matt Tibbles and Hardy. Matt Tibbles is in, and Hardy is going to be in as well. BenJS and Larkin already pitted. So the situation, we have Ruti in first. He maintains his first place. Carmentalist got up into second. Coxie is up into third, and he's in a good position if he can make those tyres work.
Yes, certainly, because of course no penalties to his name. Nathan JB, I think, will be allowed to serve a 5-second penalty, so he is now down to 3 seconds on penalties. Just 13 cars left in the race now, so it's looking like points for just about anyone that finishes bar 1. And right now it's still not looking all that good for BenJS to get his first points of the season, still running in 12th, but with Larkin it's going to catch up to him, and with 6 seconds of penalties to his name, not looking so great for him at this stage. It's going to be fresh softs for the vast majority of the grid. Carmentalist and Coxie are those guys that we're going to have to watch out for. They're going to be on the back foot, certainly, because those softs do degrade very fast, and a 5 or 6 lap difference in tyre wear it could certainly make a big impact. There's not very long in the race, and it's difficult to overtake here, but Carmentalist and Coxie could be under threat, and of course Carmentalist has a time penalty, but I think Coxie in particular, if he can just keep those tyres switched on, the tyres are already scrubbed, which will give him an advantage straight off the safety car, but the softs shouldn't be too difficult to heat up for the rest of the drivers. Nevertheless, if he could just hang on and fend off Kriko, who we've seen being very passive in this race so far, Ariel Coxie could potentially have a great result on his hands after what's been a very frustrating season for the Aston Martin.
Yeah, definitely have not been the greatest showing so far this season from him, but this race, if this gamble does pay off for him, he's on for potentially a podium, and we'll have to see if he can maintain without any penalties, which will be definitely important as well, and everyone in behind will be eager to get past, I reckon.
Yes, certainly. So how are the likes of Kriko going to play this? Because a lot of this race does fall into his hands. He's still got that chance of a net P2. Carmentos isn't really a threat to him as long as he doesn't pick up a penalty himself. He's got Boompia as a buffer to Gary, the next car behind him, without a penalty. Boompia, of course, we've seen that great overtake on XL Gary, so he'll look to try and take advantage of that. CRL Nathan, by the way, that penalty served does drop him down to 7th on the road, but with 5 seconds less of penalties, I think he'll certainly be reasonably happy with that. Run 7th at the moment, so let's see how this is going to go. We're back together. We should get back to racing on this lap. Ruti's still fairly comfortable, you imagine, with 2 drivers on older tyres behind him. Really just has to keep it on the island, keep it but on the black stuff, and it is looking like his race when he's been dominant throughout. But Kriko versus Carmentalist and Coxie, I think that's the main dynamic we've got to be looking for on this restart.
Yeah, I think those two are going to matter what's going to happen here. And if Coxie and Carmentalist, both of them obviously on track and hold on, I think it'll be very difficult for Kriko and the guys in behind to get past if they can hold on to the DRS until that gets activated. The safety car does go in this lap. We get about a lap and a half of DRS at the end. We'll have to see if they can maintain that. But with Ruti's pace, that's going to be very difficult, I reckon.
Yeah, you'd imagine that Ruti is going to drop these guys fairly quickly, you'd imagine. He's going to be weaving around on this restart, but with so much extra grip, he just has to make sure he gets away cleanly. So he leads Carmentalist and Coxie at the moment then. Kriko has just not been able to live with the Super Hassman at the moment up at the front of the grid, and now Ruti is just guiding them around, raring to go again. He waits, slowing it down about 80 kilometers an hour, steady pace. Carmentalist is laying off him slightly then, as we get towards the green flag, and away he goes. Ruti gets the hammer down, and away he goes to the front. Then Carmentalist has not been able to go with him at all, so you'd imagine that DRS is going to be lost fairly quickly within the next couple laps. Green flag is out then, and everyone fairly single file then down the main straight, through to T1 and 2. And no real threat from Kriko just yet towards Ariel Coxey. So we'll see how that is going to unfold then. Behind him, Bumpy is still holding on the P5. Really not much going on. Everyone has managed to get away fairly nicely from that safety car restart, filtering through all in a line then. But Ruti, as we expected then, 1 sector right, and that 1 second gap has already been established.
Yeah, meanwhile, Coxie behind is struggling as well.
Yeah.
He's got a 1 second gap to Carmentalist, and Kriko is now 3 tenths behind. I think Coxie is not holding on to those tires very well. He's staying away from that curve at least, anyway. And Bumpy is also looking in behind. He's going to put pressure on Coxie. Obviously, he wants to get as big of a gap as possible to the cars behind to get not anyone into that penalty range. Kriko's now burning his ERS, but Coxie is as well, as the screen picks up a penalty. He didn't have one before, so that would be an unfortunate blow to his chance of a good result here. I have to see, can Kriko find his way past?
Kriko then searching on the rear wing of Ariel Coxey then. Coxey again just out of that range of Carmentalist. He'll want to keep it within 3 seconds at the very least then. Kriko has got time to do this then, but he doesn't want to let that gap grow too much. The 1.4 seconds up in front to Carmentalist then. BenjiS slips past Matt Tibos on the main straight, and he picks up P11 on the road, just in front of the Williams then as they head down towards turn number 1. Kriko is close to Ariel Coxey, but unable to find a manoeuvre just yet, and they all just sit behind waiting. Zerwa has actually been detached somewhat. He's still within range as it stands, but at the moment then hasn't quite got the tyres switched on as well as he hoped. And Nathan JB is hounding Gary. Of course, he got past him earlier in the race. He sits on the rear wing in the Red Bull, unable to get through just yet. Then Coxey's gap to Carmentalist is almost up to 2 seconds, and Coxey's chances of a potential podium then could be in jeopardy if Kriko attacks. So let's see how that's going to unfold. And Carmentalist's pace is very strong given the tyre life, and he looks to try and establish as good of a position he can with his closest rival out. Coxey very slow through the chicane, and Kriko is up and alongside him. 2 wheels on the grass. He's got the inside line though, and this could be it. Emily Kriko dives in on the brakes, cuts the inside, but he's through to position 3. Emily Kriko gets the manoeuvre done, and you sense that Coxey's inability to get the tyres switched on is going to cost him relative to Carmentalist, who's already just about 3 seconds up the road, and Kriko now goes after Carmentalist then. But you'd imagine P2 is pretty much his, barring a mistake. Bumpier desperately trying to follow through right on the rear wing of the Aston Martin of Ariel Coxey at the moment then, but hasn't got through just yet. Penultimate lap of the Australian Grand Prix, and Bumpier trying to create an overtake. He's using as much of the battery as he can, but he can't get near enough to the Aston Martin, who of course is trying to hold on to a podium, but it looks like that's beyond him at this point then. The Aston Martin slipping. Looks like Carmentalist may well be able to get a podium at this stage, as Kriko I think is too far back to really challenge. He will still, you'd imagine, stay within that penalty range, but Coxey really struggling. And what this has done is Kriko did a great job of taking that opportunity, and right now Bumpier and Gary, regardless, maybe they can try and force something, but right now our podium looks to be fairly settled at this stage.
It does look like that, yeah. Coxey has used all of his ERS already as well, red flashing light over the place, and Bumpier is now going to get past, but just picking up a penalty. But yeah, Bumpier easily passed, and Gary will be the next one up. He's also drained all of his ERS.
Oh, he's hit him!
Oh, he gets it. Yeah, he's gone to the back of him. I don't think that's caused him any damage, at least not visible. We'll have to see if he can get past. He sends it down the inside, and that's a bit too late, and he spins round and that's going to drop him a lot of positions behind Larkin even. He'll still probably get some points due to the penalty of a hit, but yeah, he's gone for it way too late there and had to pay the price for it.
I think frustration kicking in there for XL Gary, who was on for a podium for most of this Grand Prix, had that jeopardised, and yeah, he's just, I think, in desperation, sending it a bit too much. Matt Tibos is attacking BenJS on the inside. These guys are identical in penalties, so it's a fair fight. BenJS sends it through turn 4 and right over the curb to make sure he holds on to the place, and Matt Tibos has to yield P11 at the moment. Then Larkin in P12 could actually gain quite a bit despite an absolute horror show for him tonight. Could be a solid top 10 finish at this stage. Zerma's up behind Nathan JB. Commentalist has made the right call. We can say that indisputably in terms of strategy. Looks like it's going to win him a podium as Matt Tibos is round on the final lap, and that's going to drop him way down. Looks like he's going to be the man that's going to miss out on those points tonight. So Matt Tibos then recovers it, but down in P13. We'll look up the front though, because this man, as Nathan JB is again got past Cox in the last lap. Cox is slipping back, but this man has been imperious all the way through tonight, and around the last corner there's Roti to the line, who's going to take the race win in Australia. Crosses the line, he wins easily. Over in second place on the road is Commentalist. Kriko will take that on penalties then. Boompia crosses fourth. Coxley does get fifth in the end, just in front of Zaruma. Boom, so it's Commentalist podium, which I think he'll be delighted with after the way that race unfolded. Then Cox 8, Zaruma, Larkin somehow 7th after the race he had. Nathan JB, that scream. Gary, Hardy, BenJS finally on the board in points. And yeah, Matt Tibos, a last lap mistake, will render him 13th for the race. And well, that was a somewhat strange one. Certainly a race of attrition, as I think we anticipated somewhat around Australia. XL Zaruma manages to pick up the Driver of the Day award in the end, but in the end, as we look towards the podium, Rute in the end, I mean really, just no one could get near him at any point. Every second of this race, of this session, he was just dominant.
Yeah, it was utterly quick every second of the race, and he showed that he is absolutely rapid and one to be dealt with. Maybe in D1, maybe in D2. We'll have to see about that one. But yeah, absolutely fantastic race from him nonetheless. And we'll see if we can get these guys in.
Yeah, hopefully we can then for those podium interviews. Just to run through, we've already had a little look at the results, but we'll do it anyway. Rutsi Ulit, not the real one, but he is certainly the man to beat in this race. Then just under 4 seconds ahead of Kriko, although that's not really representative for the way the race is played out. Commentalist, I don't know how he keeps ending up here. He's not looked dominant at any point throughout this season. He still hasn't won a race, but somehow the results just keep flying in for him. Boompier, I think his best result of the season for him. He gets 4th. Coxey and 5th, again, his best result of the season. Zerma, Larkin, Nathan, JB, that scream it, Gary, Hardy, BenJS, the points finishers. Matt Tibos, Timon, Calvin, Mr. BT, Jaco, AJ Wuhan, and Funky Chicken. That is a lengthy list. They did not see the checkered flag in the end. So, that is going to be it for the Australian Grand Prix. A very strange race, it must be said. And in the end, well, that championship just... the board has been spread once again. The game's been spread. I have no idea how Commentalist, 9 rounds into the season, is leading this comfortably without a single race win to his name. It's astonishing.
Yeah, it's just been utterly consistent, getting on the podium, getting top 5s every race almost, apart from France, I think, which is tremendous to see, his consistency. And he absolutely has been deserving of it, but it would be nice to see him get a race win for once.
It's quite like he's had his chances to win races that didn't quite materialize further down the season as well. Again, you know, in a season where everyone has been all over the place, like no one has been anywhere near what you'd call consistent. You've got this man, 9 races, 8 top 5s, 7 top 4s, only 3 podiums and not a single win. It's just... it's unheard of. Like this doesn't happen. This shouldn't happen, but it is happening. We'll see if we can get all these guys in for the podium interviews. We can actually hear from them. But again, the championship lead is going to be extended. Tymon has had the pace all season long, but these last few races, just nothing has went his way.
Yeah, it's not been the greatest streak of races for him, and he'll have to see if he can come back, or maybe the stronger, maybe the more notoriously pads tracks, if we like to call them. Looking at maybe Zandvoort, maybe China, Brazil later on in the season as well. So he still has some opportunities, but it's not been going great for him so far.
Yeah, certainly. Of course, he's had his ups this season. There's been no doubt about that. But last 3 races, 0 points scored for a man that was looking like the title favourite at one point, not what he was after. We can get things kicked off then as we come to Mr. Ariel Carmentalist, our podium finisher, our championship leader by some margin now. One word, how? How does this keep happening to you? How do you always end up here?
Because I keep it on the road, plain and simple, that's why. But, I don't know how I keep ending up in this position. And my plan of winning this championship without ever winning a race is coming to fruition at the moment.
Yeah, you have it, and I'm not exactly sure of what your championship lead will be. It was 20 points coming into this race. I guess that makes 35 after this. So you're looking very comfortable at this stage. I guess just run us through what we saw near the end of the race, because we saw you just picked up a penalty, things weren't looking good for you, you couldn't shake Zuidema off at that point. What was the psyche behind that strategy decision that ultimately got you on the podium?
I think you can't really overtake Australia in a train unless you have a massive tyre advantage. And I'd only been on the softs for, I think, 3 or 4 laps prior to that, so they weren't bad. I was still setting times within 2 or 3 tenths of my PB at that point, so I knew my tyres weren't bad, and I knew, no offence to him, but I knew Ryan would stay out, and he wasn't quite as fast as me today, so I feel like he would act as a cork in the bottle, which he did, which obviously worked perfectly. So yeah, I knew that the tyre advantage wouldn't have been enough really for people behind me to have a go, so I just went for track position, and with my penalty as well, if I had pitted and lost all that track position and still had the penalty, I wouldn't have been able to gain anything. So, yeah, it was kind of a no-brainer for me.
Okay, well, it certainly assisted you throughout the end of that race, and a 3rd podium of the season. I'm struggling to get my head around this. A man that has only had 3 podiums in 9 races and not a single win is leading the championship by a big margin. I just simply do not understand this. This doesn't happen. I guess running through the future races, we're now more than halfway through the season. We've got 8 rounds left in this championship. Looking at what's in front of you, how do you rate your chances of trying to win this season without a win?
I would say pretty high. Because at the moment, I feel like obviously Gary and TDB and all that have had their moments, Nathan JB as well, but it's been a little bit up and down for them. So if one of them gets on form, then it'll be hard for me to stop them, I would say, because raw pace-wise, I don't have the raw speed of Thymen, Gary, or Nathan JB at this point. But yeah, if it keeps going as it is, if it keeps going up and down, then I think that works well for me. And I think the tracks that we've got coming up definitely indicate towards it being a bit up and down as the season goes on. So there's definitely a few tracks I'm looking at to get podiums in again. I might just intentionally not win when I'm on for a win, just so I can try and get the record up, but we'll see how the season's looking at that point.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't look like we'll get any of the other podium finishers in, but I guess I'll come to you, QVR Verstappen. You got a question for our 3rd place finisher today and championship leader. Go on.
Well, congratulations, of course, once again. Love to see you here, as always.
It's totally not sarcasm.
Definitely not. No, I have to say, are you struggling to wrap your own head around how other people keep, well, say, bottling it? Because I guess that must be quite weird to see, as knowing you might not have the raw pace of guys I should mention, like Nathan JB or Gary or whatever. But do end up on top every time.
Yeah, it's a little weird. I think a track like this, it's maybe not that surprising because this definitely suits me a bit more. This kind of track, I do like a track that's a bit more difficult and narrow and that kind of thing. So that's more to my wheelhouse. But I think especially last week when Thyman didn't score at Bahrain, I think that was a big shock. So I feel like people like Thyman, Gary, and all that haven't really taken the most of their opportunities that they've had. Whereas I've just tried my absolute best to try and finish as high as I can every time, and I'm taking risks, and most of the time they're paying off. So yeah, it's a little bit bizarre to see drivers kind of making mistakes. Maybe not tonight, but other races this season have been surprising to say the least.
Well, thank you very much, mate. Again, I don't think we'll hear from the other podium finishers, so I think that's going to be it for tonight. I guess I'll hand back to you, Mr. Verstappen, Kvyat Verstappen. Do you have any final words from what we saw tonight?
Just utter chaos, to be honest. There was a lot going on. People not keeping it on the road. Let's see if that's better next time in Spa. But yeah, weird race. But yeah, fairly entertaining nonetheless.
Yeah, certainly. Definitely a different sort of entertainment to maybe what we're after. But yeah, certainly a very intriguing race that what we saw. Next race is going to come to you from Spa, Belgium. So we'll see how that is going to unfold. I think that is going to be just about it for tonight. Thank you all very much for watching once again at Division 2 now. Of course, more than halfway through the season. We'll see what the second half is going to have in offer for us. But for myself and Verstappen, it is goodbye for now, and until next time, we'll see you later.